I woke up in a hospital bed with no idea how I got there. The ceiling was white, the lights were too bright, there was a beeping sound somewhere to my left, a heart monitor, I realized. My mouth tasted like copper, and my head felt like someone had stuffed it with wet cotton. A doctor was standing at the foot of my bed. Young guy, maybe 40, white coat, clipboard in hand. He was frowning. "Colonel Ashford, can you hear me?" I tried to speak. My voice came out like sandpaper. "Where am I?" "Charleston Memorial. You collapsed at home 2 days ago. Your housekeeper found you on the kitchen floor and called 911. Do you remember any of that?" I didn't. The last thing I remembered was Sunday dinner. My nephew, Marcus, and his wife, Amanda, had come over. We'd had pot roast. Amanda brought that herbal tea she always makes, said it was good for my joints. After that, nothing. Just darkness. "I don't remember," I admitted. The doctor's frown deepened. He glanced at the nurse beside him, then back at me. "Colonel Ashford, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Have you been taking any medications we don't know about? Sedatives, sleep aids, benzodiazepines?" "No, nothing like that. I take blood pressure medication and a baby aspirin, that's it." He nodded slowly. "That's what I was afraid of." "What do you mean?" "Your blood work came back with significant levels of benzodiazepines in your system, lorazepam specifically. The levels are consistent with ongoing exposure, not a one-time dose, but sustained administration over weeks, possibly months." I stared at him. The words weren't making sense. "Someone has been drugging you, Colonel, and based on the concentration in your blood, they've been doing it for a long time." What I discovered over the next 6 weeks would destroy my nephew's marriage, expose a woman I'd welcomed into my family, and force me to question everything I thought I knew about trust and loyalty. But lying in that hospital bed, I had no idea who was doing this to me, or why. All I knew was that someone wanted me slow, confused, and easy to control. The story I'm about to tell you took 6 weeks to fully understand, and it nearly cost me everything: my money, my family, my mind, maybe even my life. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, hit subscribe to John Vengeance, because this one's gonna hit close to home. My name is Theodore Raymond Ashford. Everyone calls me Ted. I'm 71 years old, and I live in Charleston, South Carolina, in a restored antebellum home that's been in my family for 3 generations. I spent 30 years in the United States Army, enlisted at 18, served 2 tours in Vietnam as a young lieutenant, rose through the ranks over 3 decades of service. I commanded a brigade during Desert Storm. I retired as a full colonel in 2002, with a chest full of medals and a lifetime of memories I don't talk about at parties. After the Army, I served on the board of a defense contractor for 15 years. Good money, easy work, mostly just showing up at meetings and lending my name to things. I stepped down 5 years ago when my knees started complaining about the travel. For 2 years, she'd been the perfect nephew's wife, attentive, helpful, always bringing me tea when she visited. I didn't know that tea was slowly poisoning me. These days, my life is quiet. I've got a 1967 Mustang GT in the garage that I restore piece by piece. I read military history. I play poker with some buddies from the VFW on Thursday nights. I talk to my kids, Will in Atlanta, Kathy in Raleigh, a couple of times a week. And I spend a lot of time on my porch watching the boats go by on the harbor. I was once married, Elaine, 28 years. We divorced 15 years ago. Not bitter, just we'd grown apart after the kids left. She remarried, then widowed, and now we're friends again. She calls every couple of weeks to check on me. We joke that we're better friends than we ever were spouses. I've got money, more than I need. Military pension, board fees, smart investments over the decades. Net worth around $4 million, give or take. I don't flash it around. I drive a 10-year-old pickup truck for errands. I buy my clothes at the same store I've used for 30 years. But the money's there, in accounts, in property, in the things that matter. I tell you all this so you understand I'm not a fool. I've commanded men in combat. I've made life and death decisions under fire. I've survived situations that would break most people. And yet, a 34-year-old woman with a pretty smile and an Instagram account nearly destroyed me. Because I've trusted her. Because my nephew loved her. Because she was family. Let me tell you about Marcus. My younger brother, Richard, died 6 years ago. Heart attack, out of nowhere. He was 58, same age I was when I retired. One minute he was mowing his lawn in Augusta, Georgia, and the next he was gone. His wife had passed from cancer 2 years before that, so when Richard died, Marcus was alone. Marcus was 30 at the time. Good kid, never gave anyone trouble, but he'd always been a little lost. Bounced between jobs after college, couldn't quite find his footing. When Richard died, I stepped in. That's what you do for family. I helped him get a job at a logistics company in Atlanta, called in a favor from an old Army buddy. I helped him pay off his student loans. I invited him to Charleston for holidays, made sure he had somewhere to go for Thanksgiving and Christmas. I wasn't trying to replace his father. I just didn't want him to feel alone. When he met Amanda, I was happy for him. She was pretty, outgoing, seemed to adore Marcus. They'd met at some kind of networking event. She said she was in social media marketing, whatever that means. They dated for 2 years, then got married 3 years ago. Small wedding, nothing fancy. I paid for the honeymoon as a gift. Stop. I need you to understand something about military command. You don't survive 30 years by trusting the wrong people. You learn to read faces. You learn to spot lies. You learn to identify threats before they become problems. And I missed every single sign with Amanda. She was good, I'll give her that. She knew exactly what to say, exactly how to act. When I had minor knee surgery 2 years ago, she offered to help with paperwork and bills while I recovered. "Let me handle it, Uncle Ted," she said. "You just focus on healing." I let her handle it, gave her access to my files, my statements, my routines, trusted her the way I'd trust any family member. That was my mistake. After the hospital released me, I went home and tried to figure out who had access to my food and drinks. I live alone. My housekeeper, Maria, comes 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. She's been with me for 12 years. I trust her completely. She doesn't cook for me, she just cleans. Marcus and Amanda visit once or twice a month, usually for Sunday dinner. Amanda always brings something, her special tea, homemade cookies, sometimes a casserole. She said the tea was a blend she made herself, something with chamomile and valerian root. Good for relaxation, she told me. Good for your blood pressure. I'd been drinking it for almost 2 years. The timeline clicked into place. The fogginess I'd been feeling, the afternoons where I lost track of time, the nights I couldn't remember getting into bed. I blamed it on age. 71 years old, things slow down. That's what I told myself. But it wasn't age. It was lorazepam. It was Amanda. I didn't want to believe it. I spent 3 days convincing myself there had to be another explanation. A contaminated supplement, a mistake at the pharmacy, anything but the woman my nephew had married. Then Destiny Morales knocked on my door. The woman who showed up at my door 3 days after I left the hospital would change everything. I almost didn't answer. I wish I could thank God every day that I did. She was young, late 20s maybe. Dark hair pulled back, professional clothes, nervous energy. When I opened the door, she started talking before I could say hello. "Colonel Ashford, my name is Destiny Morales. I'm a flight attendant with American Airlines. I know this is going to sound crazy, but I think someone in your family is stealing from you, and I have information you need to hear." I stared at her for a long moment. In 30 years of military service, I'd learned to trust my instincts about people. Something about her eyes, earnest, urgent, genuinely afraid for me, made me step aside. "Come in."
We sat in my living room and she told me everything. 6 weeks earlier, she'd been working a first-class flight from Charleston to Miami. A woman in seat 3A, well-dressed, expensive handbag, Instagram perfect, had made a phone call before takeoff. She was speaking too loudly, the way people do when they think the noise of the plane will cover them. Destiny was close enough to hear every word. "The old man has no idea. I've got his accounts set up so everything routes through me. Marcus doesn't know anything. He'd freak out if he knew." There was more. Something about just keeping him comfortable until everything's transferred. Something about he's too out of it to notice. Destiny wrote it all down the moment she could. Names, phrases, the tone of voice, casual, almost bored, like stealing from an elderly relative was just another item on a to-do list. "I didn't know who she was at first," Destiny explained, "but I've seen this before. My grandmother was a victim of elder abuse. A caregiver stole $40,000 from her before we caught on. She died 6 months later. I think it broke her heart more than anything else." "I'm sorry," I said. "So am I. That's why I'm here." She pulled out her phone. After the flight, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I found her Instagram. It's public. She posts constantly. And in a lot of the photos, there's an older man, distinguished, military-looking. I did some searching. His name is Colonel Theodore Ashford. She turned the phone toward me. There I was, in a dozen photos I didn't know existed. Holiday dinners, backyard barbecues, Amanda smiling at the camera while I sat in the background, looking foggy, confused, not myself. "That woman's name is Amanda Pruitt Ashford," she said. "She's your nephew's wife, and she's been robbing you blind." The next morning, I called my son. Will is 47, a successful attorney in Atlanta. He's sharp, methodical, and he knows how to dig into things without making noise. I didn't want to go to the police yet, not until I knew the full scope of what Amanda had done. If I was wrong, I'd look like a paranoid old man turning on family. And if I was right, I wanted evidence so solid she couldn't squirm out of it. Will flew down the next day. He didn't ask many questions on the phone. He just said, "I'm coming." We started at the bank. First Citizens has been my bank for 40 years. I know the branch manager, Douglas Whitfield, from the country club. He's a good man, discreet, the kind of banker who understands that wealthy clients need privacy. When I walked in with Will and explained what we needed, Douglas's face went pale. "Colonel Ashford, I should have called you myself. We've been seeing some unusual activity on your accounts, but every time we tried to verify, we were told you'd authorized it. The signature matched. The ID was valid." "Show me." He led us to a private office and pulled up my records. $127,000. That's how much she had stolen over the past 18 months. Wire transfers to accounts in her maiden name, Pruitt. Checks made out to cash with my forged signature. Credit card purchases I'd never made. A pattern so systematic it looked like a salary. But when I saw where the money went, when Destiny helped me trace the Instagram posts, the handbags, the designer clothes, the vacations to Cabo and Miami and the Bahamas, that's when I felt something I hadn't felt since Vietnam. Pure, cold fury. Will had brought a handwriting expert with him, a friend from law school who specialized in document fraud. She looked at the signatures on the checks and the signatures on my authentic documents. "These aren't even close," she said. "Someone tried to copy your style, but there are fundamental differences. Pen pressure, letter spacing, the way you cross your T's. This is obvious forgery to anyone trained to look." "Can you testify to that?" Will asked. "Absolutely." That night, I sat on my porch with a glass of bourbon and tried to make sense of it all. $127,000, almost 2 years of steady theft, and the whole time she was smiling at me, bringing me tea, calling me Uncle Ted, playing the perfect wife while she drugged me into a stupor and drained my accounts to fund her Instagram fantasy. I thought about Marcus, my brother's son, the kid I'd tried to protect after Richard died. Did he know? Was he part of it? I didn't want to believe that, couldn't believe that. Marcus had never been great with money. He'd always struggled, but he wasn't a thief. He wasn't cruel. He was just a lost kid who'd married the wrong woman. But I needed to know for sure. I'm 71 years old. I've been shot at. I've held dying soldiers in my arms. I've buried friends in Arlington. And this woman, this 34-year-old with her perfect smile and her designer clothes and her 47,000 Instagram followers, she almost destroyed me. Because I trusted her. Because my nephew loved her. Because I was lonely and she made me feel like I still had family. That's how they get you. Not through force, through warmth, through kindness, through the exact thing you're starving for. The days that followed were a blur of documentation and discovery. Destiny helped me navigate Amanda's social media. I'm not a tech-savvy person, never have been, but she walked me through it patiently, showing me how to screenshot posts, how to check dates, how to cross-reference purchases with my bank withdrawals. Every photo told a story. A $3,200 Gucci handbag purchased the same day $3,500 vanished from my checking account. A 5-star resort in Cabo matching a $4,800 wire transfer. First-class flights on my American Express that I'd never taken. She was living a fantasy life, and I was funding every second of it. The medical records were even damning. My doctor provided documentation of the benzodiazepine levels in my blood, and along with a timeline of my confusion episodes over the past 2 years. Maria, my housekeeper, gave me a list of dates when Amanda had visited and brought food or drinks. The overlap was almost perfect. Every spike in my confusion corresponded to a visit from Amanda. Every period of clarity came when she was away. She'd been poisoning me slowly, carefully, just enough to keep me off balance, not enough to kill me, not yet, but enough to make me compliant, enough to make me sign things I didn't remember signing, enough to make me not notice when money disappeared. I found myself wondering, how long would she have kept going? At what point would a groggy, confused old man become too expensive to maintain? At what point would an accidental overdose or a tragic fall have solved her problem permanently? I'll never know, and that scares me more than anything. A week into the investigation, I made a decision. I needed to hear it from her. Not for the courts, Will had that handled, but for myself. I needed to understand how someone could smile at me for 2 years while stealing my life away. I invited Marcus and Amanda to Sunday dinner, just like old times, just like nothing was wrong. I wore a button-up shirt with a chest pocket. Inside that pocket was my phone, recording. They showed up at 6. Amanda brought her tea, of course she did, and a bottle of wine. She hugged me at the door, warm and affectionate as always. "Uncle Ted, you look so much better. I was so worried when we heard about the hospital." "I'm fine. I guess I'm just getting old," I said. "Nonsense. You're the toughest man I know." I smiled, and I watched her pour that tea. She set it in front of me at the dinner table. Marcus was talking about work, something about a supply chain problem, and Amanda was nodding along, playing the supportive wife. I didn't touch the tea. I pushed it aside and reached for my water instead. Her eyes flickered, just for a second. A tiny crack in the mask. "Not thirsty for tea tonight?" she asked lightly. "Doctor's orders," I said, cutting back on caffeine. "It's herbal, no caffeine. Still, better safe than sorry."
She let it go, but I saw her watching that cup for the rest of the meal. After dinner, I excused myself to use the restroom. Instead, I slipped into my study and locked the door. From my desk drawer, I pulled out a small vial I'd gotten from the hospital, a test kit for detecting benzodiazepines.
I dipped a strip into the tea. It turned blue immediately. Positive. I stood there in my study, staring at that blue strip, and I felt something shift inside me. The last doubt disappeared, the last hope that I'd been wrong, that there was some other explanation, that my nephew's wife wasn't trying to destroy me. It evaporated like morning fog. She was guilty, and she had no idea I knew. I went back to the dining room. I finished my coffee, I smiled and nodded and played the part of the confused old uncle who didn't notice anything wrong. And when they left that night, Amanda hugged me again at the door. "Take care of yourself, Uncle Ted." "I always do," I said. Then I went back inside, uploaded the recording to my computer, and started planning the next phase. It was time to end this. The counterattack came faster than I expected. 3 days after that Sunday dinner, a courier showed up at my door with a thick envelope, official-looking, legal stamps, return address from a law firm in Atlanta I'd never heard of. I opened it at my kitchen table, and my stomach dropped. Amanda Pruitt Ashford was suing me for defamation. The complaint alleged that I had been spreading false and malicious statements about her to family members and financial institutions, that I had intentionally damaged her reputation and caused severe emotional distress, that I was suffering from age-related cognitive decline and making accusations based on paranoid delusions. She was asking for $500,000 in damages. I read it twice. Then I called Will. "She's trying to intimidate you," he said after I read him the relevant sections. "She knows you're onto her, and she's hoping a lawsuit will scare you into backing off. Classic bully tactic." She filed this in Georgia, not South Carolina. Forum shopping. She's hoping an out-of-state court will be more sympathetic to her story. "Don't worry, Dad. I'll handle it. We'll file a countersuit with everything we have, the bank records, the forged signatures, the toxicology reports. Her lawyer will see what's coming and advise her to drop it. And if she doesn't drop it, then we destroy her in court. Either way, she's not getting a dime from you, not one more dime." The lawsuit landed on my doorstep like a grenade. She was suing me for defamation, $500,000. She thought she could intimidate a man who'd commanded a brigade in combat. She thought wrong. But Amanda had another weapon, one that hurt more than any legal filing. She went to Marcus. I don't know exactly what she told him. I can only imagine. Tears, probably. The wounded wife, devastated by her husband's uncle's cruel accusations. She would have played the victim perfectly. That's what she did. That's who she was. What I do know is that Marcus called me 3 days after the lawsuit arrived. "Uncle Ted, what the hell is going on?" His voice was tight, angry, confused. "Marcus, I need to talk to you about—" "No, you listen!" He was shouting now. I'd never heard him raise his voice before. "My father trusted you. When he died, you were supposed to be there for me. And now you're trying to destroy my marriage? You're trying to take away the only good thing in my life?" I closed my eyes. Amanda had hit the exact nerve she needed to hit. "Marcus, I have proof. Amanda said you'd say that. She said you'd have evidence that someone faked. She said you've never accepted her because she's not from a military family, not from old money, not good enough for the great Ashford name. That's not true. Then why are you doing this? Why can't you just let us be happy?" I took a breath. 30 years of command experience, 30 years of dealing with men in crisis, men who couldn't see clearly, men who were making decisions based on emotion instead of facts. "Marcus, I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to look at the evidence yourself. Come to Charleston. Come alone. Let me show you what I found. And if you still think I'm wrong after that, I'll apologize. I'll drop everything. But please, give me that chance." Silence on the line. A long, painful silence. "I need to think about it," he said finally. "That's all I ask." He hung up, and I sat there in my study, wondering if I'd just lost the last connection to my brother. I'm 71 years old.
I've been shot at. I've held dying soldiers in my arms. And this woman, this 34-year-old with her perfect smile and her designer clothes, she almost turned my own family against me. She weaponized my love for Marcus, my guilt about my brother, my deepest fear that I hadn't done enough for the people I cared about. That's what makes these people so dangerous. They don't just steal your money, they steal your relationships, they isolate you, they make you doubt yourself. Have you ever felt that? When the person who's hurting you is also the person everyone else loves. 2 weeks passed. The defamation lawsuit sat on Will's desk waiting for our counterfiling. Amanda went silent. No more Sunday dinners, no more tea deliveries, no more hugs at the door. Marcus wasn't returning my calls. I threw myself into building the case. Will had assembled a team, a forensic accountant to trace every dollar, a handwriting expert to document every forged signature, a medical expert to connect the benzodiazepine exposure to my symptoms. Destiny helped me document Amanda's social media posts, creating a timeline of her purchases that matched my bank withdrawals almost perfectly. And then there was the bank. Douglas Whitfield, the branch manager at First Citizens, had been doing his own investigation after our initial meeting. What he found was even worse than I'd feared. Amanda hadn't just been forging my signature, she'd been impersonating me. "We have security footage," Douglas told me during a private meeting at his office. "She came to the teller window multiple times over the past year. Each time she presented an ID card with your name on it, your photograph, your information, but her fingerprint on file." A fake ID? A very good fake, good enough to pass a standard check. She'd cash checks, make withdrawals, transfer funds. The tellers thought they were dealing with you or your authorized representative. He turned his computer screen toward me. There she was, Amanda, at the teller window, wearing a conservative outfit I'd never seen before. No Instagram glamour, no designer accessories, just a woman who looked like she was running errands for her elderly relative. "This was 2 weeks ago," Douglas said. "She cashed a check for $3,800, your signature." I watched her on the screen, smiling at the teller, making small talk, completely at ease. "Do you have enough to involve the police?" I asked. "We have enough for the police, the FBI, and the state attorney general if you want them." I nodded slowly. "Set up a meeting. Tell her it's a routine verification, something about new fraud protection protocols. Don't mention me." Douglas understood. "What day?" "Thursday, next week." The meeting at the bank was scheduled on a Thursday. Amanda thought it was routine. She dressed up, probably wanted to look good for whatever paperwork they needed. She had no idea who would be waiting for her in that room. I spent the next week in preparation. Will flew down again, bringing the forensic handwriting expert and a detailed brief on South Carolina elder abuse laws. Destiny took time off work to be there. She'd become invested in this case, and I wanted her testimony about what she'd heard on that plane. And then I reached out to someone else, Detective Patricia Harding from the Charleston PD Financial Crimes Unit. Detective Harding was a 15-year veteran with a reputation for methodical, patient investigation. When I showed her the evidence we'd compiled, the bank records, the forged signatures, the toxicology reports, the security footage, she sat back in her chair and let out a low whistle. "Colonel Ashford, I've worked hundreds of fraud cases. This is one of the most documented I've ever seen." "Is it enough to arrest her?" "It's enough for arrest, arraignment, and probably conviction. The drugging element alone elevates this from financial fraud to assault. If we can prove intent to cause serious harm." She was keeping me confused so I didn't notice the theft, keeping me compliant.
That's what the evidence suggests. But I want to do this right. No rushing, no mistakes. When we take her down, I want it to stick. I appreciated that. In the Army, we called it one shot, one kill. You don't fire until you're certain of the target. The Thursday meeting was set for 2 p.m. I woke up that morning at 5, the way I always did. Old habits. I made coffee, sat on my porch, and watched the sun come up over Charleston Harbor. The same view I'd been looking at for 30 years, the same view my parents had looked at, and their parents before them. I thought about what I was about to do. In a few hours, I would confront a woman who had smiled at me while slowly poisoning me, who had stolen over $100,000 while calling me Uncle Ted, who had tried to turn my nephew against me, my own brother's son. I wasn't nervous. I was ready. But there was one thing I needed to do first. I picked up my phone and called Marcus. He answered on the fourth ring. His voice was wary. "Uncle Ted?" "Marcus, I know you don't believe me. I know Amanda has told you I'm confused, paranoid, losing my mind, but I'm asking you one more time, not as your uncle, but as a man who loved your father. Please come to Charleston today. There's a meeting at the bank at 2 o'clock. Amanda will be there, and so will the truth." Silence. "I don't want to come," he said finally. "I don't want to see this." "I know, but you need to, because if I'm wrong, you can look me in the eye and tell me I destroyed your marriage over nothing. And if I'm right," I paused, "if I'm right, you need to see it for yourself, not hear it secondhand. See it." More silence. Then, "What bank?" "First Citizens, downtown, 2 o'clock. There's a conference room on the second floor. I'll have someone waiting to bring you to an observation room." "An observation room?" "I don't want her to know you're there, not at first. I want you to watch, to hear, to see who she really is without the act." He exhaled heavily. "Fine, I'll be there. But if this is some kind of setup, Uncle Ted, if you're wrong about any of this, then I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I swear on your father's grave." He hung up without saying goodbye. We're at the turning point now. Everything I've been building, it was about to pay off. But before I tell you how it all went down, smash that like button if you're ready to see justice served. 2 o'clock. First Citizens Bank, downtown Charleston. The conference room on the second floor had been set up to look like a standard meeting space. Table, chairs, water glasses, a bowl of mints in the center. Nothing to suggest what was about to happen. I was already seated when Amanda arrived. So was Will, Destiny, the handwriting expert, and Detective Harding in plain clothes. Douglas Whitfield showed her in personally. She stopped in the doorway when she saw me. For just a second, one fraction of a second, I saw her mask slip. Confusion, fear, calculation. Then it was back, smooth as glass. "Uncle Ted, what a nice surprise." She smiled, that perfect smile. "I didn't know you'd be here." "Have a seat, Amanda." She glanced around the room, registered the strangers, tried to figure out the angle. "Is this about the accounts? Douglas said something about new fraud protocols." "Please, sit." She sat. I let the silence stretch. In combat, you learn that silence is a weapon. Most people can't stand it. They fill it with words, with confessions. Amanda was better than most. She waited me out for almost 30 seconds before breaking. "Uncle Ted, I don't know what's going on here, but if this is about that ridiculous lawsuit, I want you to know that wasn't my idea. My lawyer suggested it. I didn't want to—" "Let's start with the bank records." Will slid a folder across the table. Inside were 18 months of transactions, every withdrawal, every wire transfer, every forged check. $127,000, transferred to accounts in your maiden name, Pruitt. Would you like to explain that? Her face went still. "There must be some mistake." "No mistake. We verified every transaction." "Then someone is impersonating me. Someone who—" I nodded to Douglas. He pressed a button on the remote, and a monitor on the wall flickered to life. Security footage. Amanda at the teller window, date stamped 2 weeks ago, her face clear as day. "That's you, in this bank, cashing a check for $3,800 with my forged signature." She stared at the screen. The mask was cracking now. The handwriting analysis confirms it, Will added, pulling another document from his folder. Every signature on every check is a forgery. The expert is prepared to testify. Amanda's eyes darted around the room, looking for an exit, looking for an angle. Uncle Ted, I can explain. Can you explain this? Detective Harding stepped forward and placed a toxicology report on the table. Colonel Ashford was hospitalized 3 weeks ago after collapsing at his home. His blood work showed significant levels of lorazepam, a benzodiazepine, levels consistent with ongoing exposure over many months. She looked at Amanda. The medication was being administered through tea that you brought to his home on multiple occasions. This is the moment I'd been preparing for. 6 weeks of evidence, 6 weeks of patience. I walked into that bank the way I used to walk into mission briefings. Zero doubt, total focus. It was time to end this. Amanda's composure finally shattered. I never meant to hurt him. I needed the money. I was drowning. Do you understand? The debt, the credit cards. Marcus doesn't make enough, and I had to keep up appearances. I had to keep up appearances on Instagram? I asked quietly. She stopped, stared at me. We cross-referenced your posts with my bank withdrawals, the $3,000 handbag, the vacation to Cabo, the first-class flights. Every purchase matches a theft from my accounts. I was going to pay it back. I just needed time. And the drugging? Were you going to give me my brain back, too? She had no answer for that. I leaned forward. Let me tell you what I think, Amanda. I think you saw an opportunity. An old man, living alone, grieving his brother, trying to help his nephew. Easy target, easy mark. You made yourself useful. You made yourself trusted. And once you had access, you couldn't stop. Tears were streaming down her face now. Real tears, I think, not the manipulative kind, the panic of someone whose world is collapsing. But here's what I don't understand. The drugging, the lorazepam. Why? You were already stealing from me. Why did you need me confused? She wiped her eyes. Her voice was small. Because you were starting to ask questions about the accounts, about the statements. I just needed you not to notice for a little longer, just a few more months. Then I was going to stop. I swear I was going to stop. And if I'd noticed anyway, if I'd confronted you despite the drugs? She didn't answer, but I saw something in her eyes that chilled me. She'd thought about it. Whatever phase 2 was in her mind, a fall down the stairs, a fatal medication interaction, a confused old man who wandered into traffic. Mrs. Ashford, Detective Harding stepped forward. I'm Detective Patricia Harding with the Charleston Police Department. You're arrested for identity theft, forgery, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, and assault. You have the right to silence. Amanda's face went blank as the Miranda rights were read. When Harding finished, she looked at me one last time. I'm sorry, Uncle Ted. I really am. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. Then the door opened and Marcus walked in. He'd been watching from the observation room, seeing everything, hearing everything. The color was drained from his face. He looked like a man who'd just watched his house burn down. Marcus, Amanda started toward him. He stepped back, away from her. Don't, he said, his voice cracked. Don't say my name. Don't look at me. Don't... He couldn't finish. He just stood there, staring at the woman he'd married, seeing her for the first time. Detective Harding nodded to the uniformed officers who'd entered behind Marcus. They led Amanda out in handcuffs. The last thing I saw was her emerald green designer dress disappearing through the doorway, a dress that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month, a dress that I paid for. Marcus stood frozen in the conference room. Everyone else had filtered out. Will, Destiny, Detective Harding, and the bank staff. It was just the two of us now. I didn't know, Marcus whispered. I swear to God, Uncle Ted, I didn't know. I stood up and walked over to him. My brother's son, the kid I'd watched grow up, the man I'd tried to protect. I know you didn't. She was All this time she was... He couldn't finish the sentence. His legs gave out, and he sank into a chair. I sat down beside him, put my hand on his shoulder. "It's not your fault," I said. "She fooled me too. For 2 years she fooled me. But you figured it out. Only because someone warned me, a stranger, a flight attendant who overheard something she shouldn't have." I looked at him. "Destiny saved my life, Marcus. Not metaphorically, actually saved my life. If she hadn't come forward, Amanda would have kept going, and eventually..." I didn't need to finish. He understood. "What do I do now?" he asked. His voice was hollow. "What do I do?" "You come home with me. You stay as long as you need. You get through this day by day." I squeezed his shoulder. "And you remember that family doesn't give up on family. Not ever." He broke down then, sobbed like he hadn't sobbed since his father's funeral, and I held him, the way I wished I could have held Richard before he died. Sometimes that's all you can do. Just be there. The trial took 5 months. Amanda's lawyer tried every angle: mental health issues, financial desperation, temporary insanity. He argued that she'd never intended serious harm, that the drugging was just meant to help Colonel Ashford relax, that the financial transfers were loans she'd always planned to repay. None of it worked. The evidence was overwhelming. The bank records, the forged signatures, the security footage, the toxicology reports showing sustained exposure to benzodiazepines, and Destiny's testimony about what she'd overheard on that flight, Amanda's own words, casual and careless, describing how she was stealing from the old man while her husband had no idea. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts: identity theft, forgery, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, assault in the 2nd degree. The judge sentenced her to 4 years in state prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. Full restitution was ordered, $127,000, plus interest, plus legal fees. Her Instagram account was deleted by the time she was processed into the correctional facility. All 47,000 followers, all those carefully curated photos of her perfect life, gone. Her parents, decent people from what I could tell, absolutely horrified by what their daughter had done, refused to post bail. They came to the sentencing hearing and sat in the back row, crying silently. After the verdict, her mother approached me in the hallway. "Colonel Ashford, I'm so sorry. We had no idea. We raised her to be better than this. I swear we did." I didn't know what to say. How do you respond to that? How do you comfort parents whose child turned out to be a predator? "I know," I said finally. "Sometimes people make choices that have nothing to do with how they were raised." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "If there's ever anything we can do, anything at all..." "Pray for her," I said. "Pray she learns something from this." That was the last I saw of them. 3 months after the sentencing, I received a letter. The return address was the South Carolina Department of Corrections. I recognized the handwriting immediately, Amanda's careful, precise script, the same hand that had forged my signature on dozens of checks. I almost threw it away unopened, but something made me stop. Maybe curiosity, maybe the need to understand how someone could do what she did. I sat on my porch and read it as the sun set over Charleston Harbor. "Dear Uncle Ted, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve either. But I need to try to explain, even if it doesn't make sense. I grew up poor. Not the kind of poor that shows. We had a nice house, nice clothes, but the kind where you're always pretending, always acting like you belong when you don't. I got good at pretending, too good. When I met Marcus, I loved him. I still love him, but I also saw a door. Your family, your money, your stability. It was everything I'd been faking my whole life. I thought if I could just get close enough, I could finally stop pretending. But pretending is all I knew how to do,
And somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing you as a person. You became a solution to a problem, a resource, an obstacle. The drugging, I know there's no excuse. I just needed you not to see, not notice, not question. Every month I thought I'd stop. Every month I told myself just one more transfer, just one more purchase, just one more month of the life I was supposed to have. And then I'd pay everything back, and you'd never know. But the debt kept growing, the lies kept building, and I was so far in that I couldn't see a way out. I'm not asking you to understand. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking you to know that I'm sorry, genuinely sorry, not for getting caught, for what I did to you, to Marcus, to everyone. You didn't deserve any of this. I hope you're well. I hope Marcus is healing. I hope someday you can think of me as something other than the monster who almost destroyed your family. But I'll understand if you can't. Amanda. I read the letter 3 times, then I folded it and put it in my desk drawer. I didn't respond. I'm not sure I ever will. But I kept it because sometimes understanding doesn't mean forgiving. It just means understanding. And maybe that's enough. Marcus moved to Charleston 2 months after the trial. He couldn't stay in Atlanta. Too many memories, too many mutual friends who looked at him with pity or suspicion, too many reminders of the life he thought he was building with a woman who never really existed. I helped him find an apartment downtown, not far from my house. I pulled some strings at a shipping company. A buddy of mine from my Army days ran their East Coast operations and got Marcus a job in logistics management, better pay than his old position, room to grow. We didn't talk much about Amanda at first. We just existed together. Sunday dinners became a regular thing again, but without the tea, without the tension, without the shadow of someone watching and calculating. One night, about 3 months after he'd moved, Marcus finally opened up. "I keep thinking about the signs," he said. We were sitting on my porch, watching the boats. "The things I should have noticed, the credit card statements I never questioned, the shopping bags she'd hide before I got home, the way she'd change the subject whenever I asked about money." "Hindsight is a hell of a thing," I said. "But I should have seen it. I should have protected you." "Marcus," I turned to face him, "you were her wife. You loved her. Love makes us blind. That's not a character flaw. That's just being human. But you figured it out. Only because someone else saw it first. If Destiny hadn't overheard that conversation, if she hadn't been brave enough to find me, I'd probably be dead by now, and Amanda would be planning my funeral while you transferred the rest of my accounts to some offshore bank." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Do you think she ever really loved me?" That was the question that haunted him most. I'd seen it in his eyes for months. "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe, in her own way. But I think she loved the idea of you more than the reality, the family, the connections, the door you represented." I paused. "That doesn't mean what you felt wasn't real, Marcus. Your love was real. Your commitment was real. Don't let her betrayal make you doubt that." He nodded slowly, wiped his eyes. "Thanks, Uncle Ted, for everything, for not giving up on me even when I didn't believe you. Family doesn't give up on family. Not ever."
We sat there until the stars came out, not talking, just being. Sometimes that's all you can do. I'm not telling you this story because I want sympathy. I'm telling you because somewhere out there, someone is being slowly drained by a person they trust. Someone is being drugged. Someone is being stolen from. Someone is being isolated from the people who could help them, and they have no idea. If that's you, if something feels wrong in your life but you can't quite name it, wake up. Look at the people around you. Really look. Check your accounts. Verify the stories. And never be too proud to ask for help. It might save your life. Destiny Morales and I have stayed in touch. She flies through Charleston a few times a month on her regular routes. When she has a layover, she stops by the house for dinner. We talk about her life. She's dating a pilot now, someone she met on a flight to Seattle, and about her grandmother, the woman whose death at the hands of a caregiver turned destiny into the kind of person who couldn't ignore what she heard on that plane. "You know, you saved my life," I told her once. "I just passed along information," she said, shrugging it off. "You did the hard part." "No, you did the brave part, walking up to a stranger's door, telling him something he didn't want to hear. That takes courage." She smiled. "My grandmother always said, if you see something wrong and do nothing, you're part of the wrong. I couldn't be part of it." I send her a handwritten thank you note every Christmas, and I mean every word. My ex-wife, Elaine, came to stay with me for a few weeks right after the trial. She said she wanted to make sure I was eating properly, but I knew the real reason. She was worried about me, worried that the stress of everything, the discovery, the investigation, the lawsuit, the trial, had taken more out of me than I was admitting. She was probably right. Having her in the house was strange at first. We'd been divorced for 15 years. We'd built separate lives. But there's something about history, real history, decades of it, that creates a comfort nothing else can match. We fell into old rhythms. She made breakfast, I made dinner. She read her mysteries in the living room while I worked on the Mustang in the garage. We watched the news together and argued about politics the way we always had. One evening, she found me on the porch, staring at the harbor. "You're brooding," she said. "I'm thinking. Same thing with you." She sat down beside me. "Talk." I was quiet for a moment. Then, "I keep wondering how I missed it. 30 years of reading people, soldiers, officers, contractors, politicians, and a 34-year-old with an Instagram addiction played me like a fiddle." "You didn't play you," she said firmly. "She exploited your best qualities, your generosity, your loyalty, your love for your brother and his son." She put her hand on mine. "Those aren't weaknesses, Ted. Those are strengths. The fact that a predator took advantage of them says nothing about you and everything about her." I still should have seen it. Maybe, or maybe you were exactly what you'd always been. A good man trying to do right by his family. She squeezed my hand. "Stop punishing yourself for being human." I looked at her, this woman I'd been married to for nearly 30 years, who knew me better than anyone alive, who could still cut through my defenses with a single sentence. "When did you get so wise?" She laughed. "I've always been wise, you just never listened." Elaine went back to her life after a few weeks, but we talk more now than we have in years. Sometimes she calls just to check in. Sometimes I call just to hear a familiar voice. We're better friends than we ever were spouses, and that's its own kind of gift. Will and Kathy both came down for Thanksgiving last year. Will brought Sarah and their 2 teenage daughters, my granddaughters, who are growing up so fast I barely recognize them. Kathy brought her son, 12-year-old Michael, who spent the whole weekend asking me about Vietnam and whether I ever got to fly helicopters. Marcus was there too, quieter than usual, still healing, but present, engaged, part of the family again. We cooked a ridiculous amount of food: turkey, ham, 3 kinds of pie. We argued about football, we played cards after dinner, and Michael beat us all with a straight flush that he swore wasn't cheating. At one point, I looked around the table and felt something I hadn't felt in years: gratitude. Not just for surviving Amanda's scheme, not just for catching it in time, but for all of it. The family I'd built, the children who still showed up, the nephew who'd found his way back, the life I almost lost and somehow kept. "You okay, Dad?" Will asked, noticing my expression. "Yeah," I said, "I'm okay." And I meant it. I've started speaking at veterans organizations. Once a month, I drive to the local VFW or American Legion and give a talk about elder financial abuse. I tell them my story, the charming predator, the slow poisoning, the systematic theft. I show them the warning signs. I explain how to protect themselves. Most of them listen politely. Some of them nod along, recognizing patterns from their own lives. A few have pulled me aside afterward to say, "I think this might be happening to me." Those conversations matter most. Those are the lives I might be saving. I've also started writing my memoirs, not for publication, just for my grandchildren someday. I want them to know where they came from, the wars I fought, the family I built, the mistakes I made, and the lessons I learned. And yes, I include the story of Amanda, because it's part of who I am now, part of what shaped me. The Mustang is finally running. After 15 years of restoration, it's done. Cherry red, white racing stripes, 289 V8 engine purring like a contented cat. I took it out last weekend, just me and the open road, and for an hour I forgot about everything. The trial, the betrayal, the long, slow process of putting my life back together. Just a man and his car and the Carolina coast. I thought about Richard while I drove, my brother, gone 6 years now. I wondered what he'd think of everything that happened, the nephew he left behind, the woman who almost destroyed us, the way it all turned out. I like to think he'd be proud that I didn't give up, proud that I protected Marcus even when Marcus didn't want to be protected, proud that the Ashford family is still standing. When I got home, Marcus was waiting on the porch. He'd let himself in with the spare key I'd given him. "Nice day for a drive," he said. "The best." I climbed out of the Mustang and stretched. "You want to take it out later? Open her up on the highway?" His face lit up. "Really?" "Really. She's meant to be driven, not stared at." We went inside and made dinner together. Nothing fancy. Steaks, salad, baked potatoes. The kind of meal Richard and I used to make when we were young, before careers and marriages and all the complications of adult life got in the way. After dinner, we sat on the porch and watched the sun go down. "Uncle Ted," Marcus said after a while. "Yeah? Thank you for everything, for not giving up on me, for letting me come back." He paused. "For being the father I needed when I lost my own." I didn't trust myself to speak, so I just reached over and squeezed his shoulder. We stayed like that until the stars came out. I've commanded men in combat. I've made life and death decisions under fire. I've survived things that would break most people. But nothing is harder than being betrayed by someone you trusted, and nothing more rewarding than coming out the other side. I'm 71 years old. I've got a few good years left, God willing, and I intend to spend them surrounded by the people who matter. My children, my grandchildren, my nephew, the friends who stood by me when everything fell apart. The next chapter isn't written yet, but this time I'm holding the pen, and I'm not letting go. Thank you for staying with me through this whole story. It wasn't easy to tell, but it needed to be told. If it meant something to you, leave a comment, hit like, subscribe to John Vengeance for more stories of justice and payback. And remember, family doesn't always mean blood. Sometimes it means the strangers who show up at your door with the truth. Sometimes it means the people who believe you when no one else will. Sometimes it means starting over and finding out you're stronger than you ever knew. Stay fierce, because every story deserves its moment of sweet revenge.